We're doing the thing. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trying to Be Better with Joel and Steve podcast. I'm glad all of you are here. Steve is laughing.
I'm laughing already.
Oh, my
I'm
gosh.
excited.
He is excited. I'm excited too. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. And thanks for following us on Instagram and reaching out to us. Another shout out to Mike Zwingman last week. That was a great conversation. And one of the cool things Kirsten and I talked a bit about was there's a real art to a conversation. Like there's a creative,
which we're discovering right now.
Yes, right now.
And live.
Yeah.
Last week.
Well, yeah, I think you and I we debriefed about the conversation. We talked a little bit about just dynamics, and I talked about how I get a little, when I get nervous, I tend to jibber jabber, you know?
and I tend to withdraw.
Yeah, so we're learning about that, and I think that's, I don't know, it's really fascinating. I listened back to it, and it wasn't as wild listening to it as it felt doing it, maybe, or maybe we thought it, you know, like maybe we thought it.
I didn't feel like I joined the conversation in any productive way until about halfway through. I felt very not like third wheel on a date, but you and Zwingman were having a thing, and like I was like, I feel like I should be involved in this?
And you know, Steve, it's your first threesome, man. I get it. It's,
well, it was, and I was like, no, I think I'll just sit here and look at my phone. It'll be fine. They'll let me know. You know?
But you say that, and when I listen back to it, and I'm sure our listeners will agree that it wasn't like what you thought in your head was happening didn't actually come through in the pod.
Well, and that's, that goes back to that old, Jerry Garcia story where he was all upset about a musical performance in the early days. He was so mad that he threw Phil Lesh down a flight of stairs because he thought it was just awful, just crap. And then they ended up using that exact recording on their first live album.
Oh my God.
So that was the lesson there was, I can't judge what's happening by how I feel about it in the moment.
Is that not true though for everything that we as human beings experience?
Yes. Which I think that makes for a nice segue into tonight's quasi topic, which is, do we have to be spiritually fit individuals all the time to host a podcast called Trying to Be Better?
There's a short answer to that, but we want to fill some time.
Right.
I just want to give everybody a background on this, is that Steve and I were kind of talking around a couple of topics for the lead up to this. Yeah. We actually had a conversation on your way home from work. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, let's talk about this. I bounced it off my wife. But the best thing is that you had something in your gut right before we started. Mm-hmm. And we're like, now this is what we're dealing with right now in the moment. Now. Because why the curve? Why the curveball?
Because all day today, like on paper, I had a great day.
Right.
Like got some stuff, like got over a couple of hurdles at my job, got some stuff happening there. I handled it. Mm-hmm. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. Or will be fine, whatever. My wife and I got new phones today, which is not a huge deal, but it's kind of a big deal. It's every, 2.
There's always that little boost when you get a new phone,
right?
Like everything's better.
Everything's better, but
for like 30 minutes.
But like there was because we were trying to figure out getting it, we're kind of rushing around. Of course, we're impatient, so we want it now. Yes. And like my thing wasn't working and hers wasn't working, and I was like, it's crazy and very first world problem me, but nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And then I had to take my kids to a thing, and so I'm doing that, and I just like I've been just off all day. That's my point, is I have been off all day. Part of that has to do with I feel like I'm a little under the weather, so that kicks the hypochondria into gear. Like, oh, is it happening now? Right? Like, is that happening? Yes. But I go through that 2 or 3 times a week, so I figured no, it's probably just allergies or a cold or something, whatever. But so then that's a thing, kind of hanging out there.
Sure.
And I can just get kind of twisted up, for no reason. Like on paper, everything's fine. Right? But in my head, I can feel like the old gremlins chewing, and I think, and so I'm like, do I want to talk about the things? Because I feel like I would be bullshitting.
Yeah.
Right. And so like before this started, before you signed on, I was sitting here and I was doing a little sit, just doing a little meditation just to try and clear off, and that worked to an extent, but my gut just said, fuck all that.
Yeah, we had a topic picked, but I think that this is the topic that needed to be, come through.
Like what, because, and it's kind of funny. Like I've heard, and I'm sure it's just in passing, the world does not revolve around me, but recently in social interactions, people have been mentioning podcasts a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And also like in recovery, like, well, do we talk about being in recovery and, publicly?
Yeah. Right.
So that's kind of interesting. And that has led me down the thought self-centered rabbit hole of, am I trying to be better? What is this about? Like, why are we doing this? Which goes back to our first episode.
Yeah. And I think that, but I think that there's some real merit to that question though, because in that conversation, you and I talked about vulnerability.
Yes.
And so why would we force like, hey, we're going to talk about XYZ and you're feeling something other than that?
Yes.
Why would we force that topic when this is clear? And here's the thing, short answer to your question, no.
Oh, good.
I don't think that because
a lot of pressure off.
Because I think there are podcasts that we listen to that are on opposite ends of that spectrum, right?
Yes.
Mark Maron, who's a hero of both of ours for whatever reason, has made a whole career out of not being okay and talking about it.
That's true. That's true.
He has made an entire career out of like being out in the open
rope and
not being okay.
Yeah.
The other end of the spectrum is some of the more spiritual teachers we listen to.
You were going to say Joel Osteen, weren't you?
Oh, fuck that guy. Prosperity gospel, baby.
That's right.
If you prayed hard enough, Steve, you wouldn't feel this way.
Is that right?
There are people that think shit like that though. But I like Rob Bell. Oh, I don't think Rob Bell ever comes from a place of like he's better than anybody, but I do think that he is trained as a pastor and kind of keeps that sermonizing art form alive through his podcast,
which he does very well.
He does it very well.
Very well.
But I don't think that I mean, the opposite nature of Mark Maron and Rob Bell, So
yeah.
Or like I listen to Mary Stancavige's podcast of her Dharma Talks, The Undefended Dharma. I love her a lot. And she is very vulnerable, but also is a spiritual teacher. She's a Buddhist teacher. And so she does these Dharma Talks, and she comes from this place of that's the role that she is bestowing upon her listeners and her students. And I don't think we need to be in a fit spiritual condition in order to talk about trying to be better. In fact, us being okay with not being okay, I think is one of the reasons why you and I continue to talk as friends.
Oh, that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So I don't think so. I mean,
that's good.
I mean, what's funny though, is that I did, because before our conversation with Mike, I didn't sit down. And so I felt a little frantic. And today I'm like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes and set a timer and sit for 5 and just did that. And what started to come through was like thinking about the topic we had talked about and all that stuff was coming through. And I was like, great. Okay. I'm ready. Let's do this. I had to kind of bring myself to that authenticity, I guess. But I don't think that anybody, I mean, I would say predominantly the bulk of our listeners are people that know us. And so they're not going to, they know that we're, I mean, come on.
They know that we're not experts on anything.
And B, a lot of them is,
you and drama things.
Yeah. I've got some training in that and, a thing or two about management and IT.
Sure. Yes.
But, I think there are people out there who have seen us both at our worst.
100% correct. Yes.
And part of that, like being outwardly not okay, or being like, you know what, we had this topic, but screw it.
Right.
I think is really fascinating and exactly it more alive than trying to force a topic that isn't there. You know, like I think there'll be times where we have something ready to go and we're stoked for that.
We've actually planned a little bit.
Yeah. But when we kind of planned today, but there it went.
Right.
And that's totally fine. Full disclosure, I met with a therapist this morning. My first meeting with a therapist.
You mentioned that. How'd that go?
Really great. And you know, I was Kirsten, I was like, I'm gonna go downstairs. I'm gonna have my appointment. Basically, like, hey, don't come down here. I'm gonna be talking to my therapist.
Right.
And she's like, how you feeling? I'm like, well, it's kind of like a first date, you know? And so like after we got done, and it was, you know, the intro, he asked me a lot of questions about family dynamic and all that good stuff. And I came upstairs, she's like, how was it? And I was like, I guess it was kind of like a first date. He really just wanted to know about me, and he didn't tell me any. I'm looking forward to, I want to know all his personal stuff.
No,
I don't think that's how therapy works.
It's not. No, I can tell you that. Yeah.
So, you know, we're in the midst of doing the things, right? Like, and if we can't talk about that openly, dude, then what's the point, right?
Oops, sorry.
So what do you think? Do you think you need to be spiritually fit in order to be helpful to somebody? Is that what you're worried about? Like that if you're not in,
well, you need just, you know, it's the whole ego thing of like, if I'm going to put myself out there as some sort of, and that's, I need to make it very clear to anybody that's listening to this that like doesn't know me or doesn't know Joel,
right?
Is like, when we say we're trying to be better, it's not trying to be better than anything other than what we were yesterday.
Totally.
Like, it's not, we're trying to be better than you or trying to be better than,
we're trying to be better than ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
We're trying to
forward.
We're trying to move forward.
Yep.
So,
and like today was, so my point is that today was one of those days where like on paper, like a lot of the boxes were checked. Right. But in my head and in my heart, I don't know if that was the case or not. Right. And that's, I think part of that is just self-centered fear. Right.
Yes.
Which you wrestle with a lot. You know, it's like a little bit of it. I didn't really have imposter syndrome. Most of you, like I've mentioned briefly, like I have a new job. I got promoted. I'm, you know, thrust into a new role that I've kind of done before, but this is on another level.
Yeah.
And I actually care. So I want it to be good, you know, like I want to legitimately do the best job that I can. And so that's one of those that then can turn into like, well, this is not meeting my expectations, which are based partly on fear.
Right. Well, that's what that was what I was going to ask. Was it coming from this place of imposter syndrome, which is something that I have absolutely walked through doing the work that I do as a professor, because I think that in that environment, it's like one of those things where I thought I needed to be the perfect teacher in order to teach. And what I've found, and it's taken me a few years to kind of wrap my mind around the fact that, like, you know, a good teacher wants to get better at teaching and finds new ways to get better at teaching and lets go of the things that aren't working for them, you know?
And that's true just in general too.
Exactly. Huh. Yeah.
That's, you know, I had a conversation kind of later in the day as I'm kind of making my rounds and talking to people, and where one of my, not a peer, but somebody that works, you know, in the facility, the healthcare facility I worked in, said like, and we were really all kind of hoping you'd get the job. And that was so nice. You know, and I hear that kind of frequently, like as I've been going around and talking to people, they're like, we're all really happy that this happened for you. Like, we think you're the guy. But what in my head, I'm still thinking about that one user that was kind of pissed off because her thing didn't work the other day and it made her an hour behind. And she was kind of,
do you have a hard time believing praise like that?
Sometimes, sure.
Yeah.
You know, but in this case, like that's part of the reason, if there was any qualification for me to be sitting in this microphone right now, having this conversation, is that is so much better than it used to be.
Right. Oh, I can attest to that.
Like I can take a compliment today and just say, wow, thank you. That's really nice.
Yes.
And then not follow it up with some self-flagellating, defeatist, you know, well, you know, I can just say thanks. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's like that's really hard to do. And I don't know if it's ego or if it's self-pity or what exactly it is.
Little from column A, little from
yeah, it's a buffet of my self-centeredness that says I'm not allowed to accept compliments. But here's the fucked up part is that, you know, on my worst self too, I think I'm better than other, you know what I mean? Like I can have that ego that says, well, my shit doesn't stink. Right. But then when somebody says, hey, you're doing a really great job, I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit.
And that's the same coin. It's the same coin. Just
it
two
is.
sides.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently, well, last year went through a pretty gnarly review process last fall. And so about a year ago this time was, you know, having to sit down with a committee of people that looked through my entire portfolio and kind of said, we're either like, give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Right. And if it was thumbs down, I had, you know, 3 months to fix it all to get it in, but it was all thumbs up. And I walked away from like, man, that, in the moment I was like, wow, this is really great. And I was listening and hearing it. I'm walking away and I'm thinking, they're lying to me. That's all. You know what I mean? Like, there's the reason they're doing that is,
now that I'm out of the room, they're actually saying what they
now they're saying, you know, right. And I don't think that people, I don't know if it's, I don't know what it is, but I don't think people talk about that enough. Especially I have found there's one of my dear colleagues who teaches in a completely different area than I do. He and I have a lot of great conversations about we've had conversations about imposter syndrome and about anxiety. And I think that that's really prevalent, at least from my experience in academia, that can be really prevalent because here you are teaching this material, this subject, you're supposed to sort of appear to be the expert on the topic. And so that level of vulnerability, like, I don't really know, or maybe I don't know enough about that. That is like, for some people, the end of the world. If a student were to correct them or they were to appear to be wrong about something. And I don't know. I think in your and I sort of recovery world, that cultivation of awareness of your own faults is the earmark of growth.
Most definitely.
Is the earmark of trying to be better.
Right.
You know, how do you?
We have to take stock of that stuff.
Totally.
That's a critical part of the process.
Yeah. What do you do then? What do you
do with what?
What do you do to get better? What are you doing?
Oh, like my thing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes it just works itself out with time. Tomorrow's a new day, you know?
Yeah.
But like I literally took all of that pent up whatever anxiety. It's anxiety and malaise, maybe a little bit too. And then that turned into a thing because I knew we were going to do this tonight. So then I have to think, well, we've got to, the show must go on. So we'll go in and we'll talk about the things.
Here we are, episode 4, and it's like, the show must go on.
I don't want to. I just don't want to do that because it's like, I guess we can force our way through it. This ain't a Broadway production where people are coming in with expectations. They want to see the fairies on the string and whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, whatever, we'll get around to the other thing. It'll be fine. Maybe we
got so much time to do that. And this is also like, as you and I continue to do this is probably a really pivotal and important lesson because you and I are recording this right now. We're live. We're not going to go back and edit this.
Nope.
We're going to push this out there as messy and as vulnerable as it is.
And all.
And so that when we do have a topic that we're like, no, we want to talk about, thermodynamics. I don't know. We're probably never going to talk about thermodynamics. But if it ever comes up that we're like, you know what, screw this. Like, we have this as a foundation.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That if it's like, what's the point of this? Why are we talking about this? Like, I think that's good. That you and I we should never have to force this because this is extemporaneous. It's improvisational.
Yes.
And I felt that way with the conversation with Mike. There were times I'm like, man, I wish I would have chased that idea down the whole rabbit hole. Instead, I felt like I need to pretend to be an interviewer.
I always wanted to pretend to be an interviewer.
Yeah. And I think that I drove by a lot of really cool opportunities to chat with Mike.
Well, we're learning.
Yeah, man.
Maybe we'll have him on again. Zwingman Part 2.
I would love to talk to him about a multitude of other things.
So so what do I do? like I mean, obviously I just described what I went through today, but I mean like that sort of, the dark cloud or whatever that's kind of hanging over today. I mean, that can last for 2 minutes or it could last for 2 months if I let it. Right. And obviously I've been like, I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. I know that. I know that neighborhood. I know like that's not something that I want to live in. I want to live, as they say, in the sunlight of the spirit. Like that's where I want to be. That's the good place, right?
Right.
And so I mean, it's like today I felt rushed and I felt like I didn't have the time for my spiritual practice. So I was just throw that on the pile,
Right.
I forced myself before, while I was waiting for you, just to take a minute, put all this stuff aside. But like so that's the short term, right? On the longer term, because that, like that anxiety, that cloud, there's gradients of that.
Yeah.
There's the little gray thing that kind of floats by, and then there's the big Cat 5 storm rolling in.
Right.
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 And so like the things that help me with that in very pragmatic ways are things like sleeping. Regular sleep schedule. Like we go to bed at 9:30, we get up at 5:30.
That's huge. My thing. In the first date questions with my therapist today, he asked me, so how's your diet, how's your eating, how's your sleep? I've been sleeping like shit the last few days. I don't know if it's just like the end of the semester or whatever, the holiday was there, and it's like I wanted to say I get 7 to 8 a night, man, and like I don't, not for the last week. It's been weird. So that's cool you mentioned that.
Not just because you're just not sleeping well, or because you were up late watching Netflix or whatever.
Well, a little bit of both. Yeah. I mean, we've got a pretty hardcore addiction to The Sopranos right now.
Well, that's
hard time stopping.
So that's worth taking the hit for.
No pun intended.
You're right. Sure.
But I am. But the other night I woke up 3:30. I went to bed and I was maybe asleep for 2 hours, and I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning. Ding. And I was
wide awake.
Yep. And I stayed up and watched TV, and I took some melatonin to try to get back to sleep, but that screwed me up. Yeah. So anyway, you sleep, regular sleep,
and weirdly eating a balanced diet.
Right.
I mean, like I've worked with so many people over the years who, I don't know, I just can't. I feel, and I ask them what they're eating, and they're like frozen burritos.
pretty much frozen burritos, and then I crinkle some Doritos on top of that, and then I put some cheese sauce on it.
The dollar chicken pot pies, I'm like, oh my God. And I used to do that.
Yeah.
And like, I used to live that way. And so like, I will tell, like, next time you go to the store, you're buying a thing of bananas, you're buying a thing of baby spinach, and you're getting a thing of Italian dressing or whatever dressing you want. Right. And I want you to eat the banana and eat a bowl full of spinach, put whatever you got to put on it to get it down, and do that for a couple days and see how you feel.
Because I know she'll listen to this, I have to credit Kirsten, because I claim to be a vegetarian, right? I don't eat animals.
Right.
I eat eggs and cheese and milk and stuff sometimes, but that doesn't mean I eat well. I mean, you can easily eat trash, just because you say like, I'm a vegetarian, people are like, oh,
vegetarian.
Yeah, man, I can eat trash. And so Kirsten always has to remind, like, let's eat something from the earth, like something as a part of, at least
made of food,
something made of food that was born out of sunshine and earth, right. Something that comes from the ground. Is really important to do.
Well, I had, like the rule that was very helpful for me, if it comes out of a bag or like a box or a window.
Yeah. Right.
That's not,
right.
And shop from the outside of the store.
Yeah. My brother said that once, and it blew my mind. Every time I'm in a grocery store now, I'm like, whoa. He's like,
middle aisles are all processed food.
Right. That's where all the cereal is. That's where all the cereal is.
I know. And I love me some Honey-O's.
Peanut butter puffins, baby.
Oh, that's interesting.
Barber's peanut butter puffins. Dude, they can sponsor us too.
Sure. So then there's, so eating, and exercising, which I've not been great at recently, which actually probably is a direct contributor to what I was feeling today.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think
the weather's changed. Like I haven't been biking. and I hate the damn treadmill. And I have a pretty okay relationship. We have an elliptical in the house, so like,
I agree. I have not been. I mean, like biking was a thing that we were doing and walking when the weather was nice. And yesterday I got on my treadmill and was on it for maybe 30-35 minutes, and I'm like, I have to make this. I saw one of my friends who's a doctor, he put something on Instagram too. It's like, you have to make exercise has to be about it can't just be about weight loss. In fact, if that's the point, it's got to be about something. Like, that's why I love biking. I love biking because it's, like we said, it's meditation, it's fun, it's it reduces stress. And I'm like, how do I make this fucking treadmill not just like, I feel like a fucking hamster.
Yeah, it's I call it the dreadmill. And like when I was training for half marathons, I spent a lot of time on that thing, and I never ever once enjoyed it.
See, I
get my iPad out and I watch Netflix.
Just
to pass the time.
Yeah.
Listen to music sometimes.
I might have to treat myself to something ridiculous and fun, like, Star Wars, Clone Wars cartoons or something. Just to, but like, exercise can't just be about a end goal of losing weight.
It's so good for my head. Like, it really is. I mean, not just I used to, when I worked downtown, I used to go to spinning classes at the Y, RIP, RIP, downtown Y.
Oh yeah, that sucks. They're getting rid of that, right?
Yeah, it's done after over 100 years, I think. Wow. But anyway, I used to love going to spinning classes there. I could just walk across the street and go do that. And I would walk out of there just endorphins all over the place. I felt like Superman.
Yeah.
God, it was great.
Yeah. Anyway, I committed to Kirsten the other day. I'm like, now that the biking is going to be less. I mean, I may get different like winter tires for my bike and ride when it's colder. I might.
Well, your brother's the template for that.
Yeah, I know people that do that all the time, and it's like, bundle up and ride. I don't know if that's me. We'll see this winter, but I'm like, Kirsten, I said, we got to move our bodies. We got to do something. So like, yoga videos on YouTube. I got a treadmill. I got to, got to do something.
Yeah, and that's actually legit. I like yoga with Adrienne on YouTube.
Yeah, dude. Yes, indeed. What are you doing spiritually?
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is like the actual meditation practice. Like I've been doing really good on that.
Yeah.
Like I think I've missed 2 or 3 days in the last month, maybe.
Did you sit this morning?
Yeah. I did.
And it didn't keep you from feeling weird?
It didn't, man.
I totally said that's a total joke. It's like this idea that meditation is supposed to keep you from having a human experience is the biggest load of shit.
Here's the thing. I know that my day went better because of that. Because despite the fact that I was off in my head, like the idea of like, if I'm having a difficult conversation, or if I'm trying to chew through a problem, or trying to come up with a plan. I had a couple bombs dropped on me this morning. I'm like, oh, what the fuck am I going to do about this kind of thing?
Yeah.
That I was able to just, let's breathe about it.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just
No, I do.
And I was able to just go to the people that I need to go to and be like, hey, this is a thing. It came up. What do we do about this? Like, oh, well, and then by the end of the day, all those problems were solved. And I didn't once have to, freak out about it or melt down or whatever. It's like, oh, this is a thing.
Well, I think for me, it cultivates an awareness of when I am going off the rails. It doesn't keep, I've been practicing pretty consistently for the last couple of years. It doesn't keep me from having those moments. It keeps me present when those moments come up. And if I'm able to address those moments of, oh shit, or, like you said, you feel the storm coming, or poor me, or fear, anxiety, whatever, you name it. I can see it for what it is and not get lost in it.
Oh, this is just my brain trying to kill me again. That's all this is.
Oh, those are just my thoughts ruining my life. Cool.
Right. And that's one of the first things I heard when I started in my journey in recovery was my friend Dylan. Dylan, if you're listening to this, I love you. I would like to see you. He just said, he's like, well, it's just your brain trying to kill you.
Yeah, dude.
And it was, but that is like, that sentence was my introduction to meditation and mindfulness.
Totally.
Awareness of like, oh, that's just my brain trying to kill me.
Well, yeah, that's a really intense way of noting, right? Noting your thoughts. This idea of noting, oh, that's a thought, or oh, that's thinking, or oh, that's a feeling, that's emotion. I don't know that constantly worrying that my thoughts are out to kill me is necessarily helpful. Well, I mean, I know what you mean though.
But so, and that's something that's interesting. That book, Why Buddhism is True, was the guy that wrote that?
Something Wright. I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Robert Wright, maybe. I'll Google it. You keep talking.
You Google that. Okay. So that, and this is something that, like I always kind of knew, I guess, in the back of my brain, but the thing of like, your thoughts are just your thoughts.
Right.
They're not any sort of abject truth. They're not reality. They're not anything. They are just your brain doing what your brain does.
Yep. The brain is thinking. Like if you sit
thinking. And it's thinking along the lines of very, very, very old needs.
Yes.
The need to find shelter, the need to procreate, the need to feed yourself. So your brain is always going to be telling you stories based on your experience that will get those needs met. It's always going to be throwing these pictures at you that will make you react in a way that will make you go do those things.
Right. The fight, flight, or freeze, the sympathetic state of having to react to the world around you. And what meditation does, that they actually, I just watched a video on this, that sort of the scientific evidence of brain scans and meditation is that being able to put your brain into the parasympathetic state where it's not in that fight or flight. If you get a glimpse of that for 10 minutes a day, your brain gets such a break from being in fight or flight or freeze all the time.
And that leads to a much more relaxed and open state.
Totally.
In general.
Well, my therapist this morning was asking me, like, we were talking about anxiety because he was like, what are some of the issues that you want? What are some of the things you want to achieve throughout this? That's a bombshell of a question for a therapist to ask. Like, what do you hope to achieve? What do you fix me? Fix me. That's what I want.
Make me feel better. Make me feel better.
That's what I want, doc. But what I said was, we were talking about anxiety and stuff like that, and he was like, well, when do you remember not having anxiety? And I'm like, Jesus, was it before, when I was like 5 or 6? But then I thought, I've had states of peace and respite from that constant anxiety. And I've definitely can pinpoint times in meditation where I've definitely experienced that relief.
Right.
I guess I sought meditation as an aversion to my brain trying to kill me. Right. And what I found was I have a better relationship with the monkey mind. But
yes. You talked about that recently.
Yeah, dude.
That's like just having a relationship with your anxiety. It's not going to go away.
No.
But just to acknowledge it for what it is and kind of welcome it in.
Yep. The book that we mentioned, Why Buddhism is True, by Robert Wright. Great book.
I hated that book. I hated it.
Why?
Because there was so many. Well, it could be that way that I just spent 30 pages explaining, but it could be this other way. Let's explain that for 30 pages. And then it just does that again and again and again. And that makes my brain crazy.
Yeah.
Like, just tell me why Buddhism is true. Just that's where the
Isn't that the name of this book?
I want, like, is there a Cliff's Notes version of this? Because frankly, you're making me crazy. Now I say all that, and I just told you what I got out of the book.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't a completely pointless exercise.
No, it does kind of. He's an academic, right? So he's kind of comes from that sort of playing all the sides.
It was a great book that I did not enjoy reading. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's the requirement. It's not required to enjoy it, right?
No, it's not.
Yep. But I was thinking about that, that I have had real moments of relief from that sympathetic state, that I've had real, I don't even know if that's the right term, but I've had relief from that fight or flight as a direct result of meditation. In fact, this morning, I just unsubscribed from my paid McMindfulness app that I've been paying for and downloaded something else. And I did just a mindfulness of the breathing, guided meditation. And in that meditation, it talks about, like, actually feeling peace, like this is peace, and that's as real as this table that I'm resting on, like that. Well, we can talk about emptiness too sometimes, so maybe this table really isn't real, but
no, it's not real. There is
but I came to meditation to run away from, to have an aversion to my own anxiety. What I found was that I needed to have a relationship with it no matter what, that it was always going to be there. But I have lately in my practice found actual respite from.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a new level. I don't know.
When I first, I wish I could remember the guy's name, is the Dharma Punks guy.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
keep going. I'll be the Googler.
Thank you. The Dharma the Googler. The Dharma Punks NYC podcast. I've really enjoyed that. And one of the first things we're going,
Josh Corda.
Yeah, Josh Corda.
Yeah.
I like him.
I like him too.
He was talking about like the physical act of letting your belly relax.
Yeah.
Like let your belly hang out. I got a little one, and like that,
Same.
right? That, because normally I keep that taut so I can, sort of look thin.
Right.
Right. That's another topic. But anyway, he like that, just letting that out when you're breathing, that tells your body that you're not in danger. Your body, and it hits that dinosaur brain, like, oh, I'm fine. Like right now, there's nothing to worry about.
Right. That's there's like a nerve. I mean, I'm sure Josh Corda does a really good job of talking about the physical benefits of meditation. Sometimes he gets so physical and psychoanalytical that it's too much, but I did a 45-minute sit of his once, and I was bawling the whole time, and it was so healing. It was all about family dynamic and parent-child relationship stuff, and I just it was one of the best experiences.
Don't ever send me that,
dude. You need to listen to that.
I know.
You need to listen to that, and you need to. But you have to listen to the talk ahead of time too, though.
Sure. Yeah.
Because this whole talk, anyway.
Yeah, send that.
He can go off the deep end with the psychology of everything, but when he explains why you tilt your head a certain way, or why you relaxed your gut, or where you put your shoulders, like there is scientific evidence for all. You don't have to believe that there was somebody by the name of Siddhartha that was enlightened under a Bodhi tree. The practice is the evidence that, you know what I mean? Like physically, that's a thing that is actually beneficial to human beings.
Well, I just lost my thought. But I know it was that whole safety thing, that for one reason or another, for a large part of my life, was not something that I ever felt in the core of my being. Like I always felt insecure. And I don't mean like, oh, they don't like me insecure. I mean, like I felt insecure.
Like you felt unsafe in your own body.
Yes. And in my own mind, and in my world.
Yes.
And my perception. And so like, this is a fairly recent development of like acknowledging that I'm safe.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was Sharon Salzberg.
Yeah.
That kind of turned me on to that. And other people have kind of mentioned, but she's the one that really hits that in the loving kindness meditation.
Yeah.
Like, may you be safe.
Yeah.
May you be happy.
Yeah.
May you be healthy.
And
may you live with ease.
Yeah.
To offer that to yourself, to others,
to the world,
universe.
Yep.
And that really and Josh Corda also, it all kind of like when she started talking, when I listened to her talk about the loving kindness meditation and the may you be safe, and that really tied into that thing with the gut and Josh Corda.
Yeah.
Like to tell your brain, like, you're safe right now. Right now, you are safe, and there's nothing you need to be doing right now.
Yep.
For 10 minutes. Like you can take 10 minutes and be safe. And just feel that.
And that's huge, dude, because I totally identify with that. Like, how often, I don't know, for my whole life, like being still, doing nothing, that's when things got weird. Like I didn't want to be quiet. I didn't trust myself, alone. Like I didn't like being alone. I always needed to have the TV on, my phone going, somebody there, something to do. And I was never okay just in that stillness. And I think I read something about from Thich Nhat Hanh, who talked about, your true home is within you. And it's like that takes practice, because naturally, if the monkey mind is always driving the bus, being at home in yourself can be really fucking scary, can be really safe. Like I've listened to meditations where the teacher will talk about how, like, hey, if you're not okay with closing your eyes, that's fine. Just look at the floor. Because some people, and I'm sure maybe some folks that are listening to this, like, can't close their eyes because of trauma or bad shit that's happened. Like the mere fact of just closing your eyes is an unsafe place to be. But, I have found those moments in meditation and in prayer, I guess, but more in meditation, where, I'm okay. I'm safe. And that is new. That's a new world to be in,
Somebody's spinning out a print job in the printer 2 feet from my microphone. So bear with me for a second, but,
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, good. I think part of, like, for the longest time, I squandered, and I'll say the word squandered, so much time when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
Largely just out of like fear of doing anything, right? But also because I was, stoned all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's not really, and I don't mean like, hey, I got kind of lit and went and did something. I mean like comatose. Yeah. And so I think there's, when I got sober, there was a definitely a thing of like, I need to make up for lost time. I need to accomplish whatever.
Oh, wow.
No matter how Quixote-esque that goal may have unclearly defined, but there's this unease always of like, I can't just be sitting here. I can't just be sitting here because like guilt and shame and all
and
that.
The American way.
And the American way, like, dude, you need to get on the stick.
Well, right? Well, that leads me to sort of how my day was. And I don't want to derail you, but I forget to say this. I've been wanting to say it too, is, you had a day of kind of feeling off and having a lot to do. I had a day where I could have gotten some grading done, but it's not really due until later in the week. I met with my therapist.
Yeah.
I ate some lunch with my wife. We watched an episode of Sopranos.
Yeah.
I talked to you on the phone. I talked to a guy I work with. It was really chill. I entered one grade that needed completing. And there's
so you met your deadline.
But that's the thing, is that, a few years ago, I would have sat in that day like, oh, I should be doing more. Why am I
shooting all over yourself?
Shooting all over myself. So I mean, I do think that that's kind of, I don't know if it's a Midwest thing. I don't know if it's an American thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a toxic masculinity.
Like work ethic, or what do you
mean? Well, yeah, but like this feeling of, if you're at rest,
then you're a piece of shit.
If you're at rest, then you're a piece of shit. That's bullshit.
Right.
I mean, I don't know where do we get that?
My dad. That's not true. That's not fair. But I mean, like, that goes back to shame.
Yeah.
And the fact that I squandered not just time, resources. I am the prodigal son.
Right. Yeah.
So I remember, like, this is many years ago, 96, back to Dylan again. Hi, Dylan. I had a day off from work, and I was sitting at a coffee house, and I was reading the Big Book. Right. And Dylan came by. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm reading. And he said, and I mentioned something about, like, I feel like I should be doing something else. And he looked at me and said, it's okay to read recovery in your early days of sobriety.
Right.
Like, this is a worthwhile endeavor.
Right.
And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I needed permission to just sit at a coffee house and read a book that was going to save my life.
Right.
In theory.
And you know what's weird? Like, going back to the great pause that we're all experiencing. Yes, we're experiencing a gnarly pandemic where people are sick and dying in hospital. It's all bad. But there's also the silver lining of that, though, is that there were times, April, May, where it was like, you can't leave your house, you can't go to a concert, you can't go to the movies, you can't go to just wander around a record store. And I was like, well, I guess sitting on my couch right now reading a book, I'm doing my civic duty.
Like, you're doing your civic duty.
But why do we need a reason to rest? I don't know. That's some shame shit there, but I don't know.
But that is very much, I won't say American, because Japan has that issue too.
Mm-hmm.
Where like people work themselves to death,
totally,
or commit suicide just because they're so overworked.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, well, the if we don't work harder, then we won't get more.
But when you start actually feeling the benefits of a spiritual practice, no matter what that is, I mean, Steve and I have talked about meditation a lot today, but like, it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start actually applying that, you start realizing that and this is gonna this might sound really corny, but the real gifts of that and the real benefits of that are within. I mean, those things it's about.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I'm
kidding.
In my particular path, like, you take refuge in three things: in the possibility of enlightenment, you take refuge in the people that are on the path with you, and you take refuge in the truth as you learn it and the teachings around you. Like, those three things, it's not about getting to heaven. It's about taking refuge in things that will protect you from, your head and you chasing a thought off a cliff.
So here's the thing, is that I think it's safe to say that you and I both fall into the category, is that like, we need help with that.
Totally.
Yes.
So
I see people that don't seem to need help with that, who are just okay. And like legitimately so. And it's easy for me to think that I'm defective because of that.
But here's the real question, though, is you mentioned metta, or you mentioned the loving kindness meditation that you did of was it Sharon Salzberg?
Mm-hmm.
That is based on this idea that we all want peace and ease and safety.
Yes.
Right. And that universal understanding, that universal desire, I don't care who you're running into, man. Nobody out there, nobody listening, nobody that you see in the grocery store or driving their, Lexus down the road, nobody out there is okay. Nobody out there is okay. And if anybody thinks that that's wrong, please email us, because sure. I don't understand how people, it's like the whole judging people's, what do you judge people's outsides by your insides, or right. Your insides by their outsides? Right. Nobody's okay.
Yeah.
Like we all want peace and ease, and we all expect it. And the people that are attaching to things to make them okay are not okay. Like we're all doing that dance of like being okay with what we have and what we have within, but also struggling against a brain that wants to kill us. And I don't think that that's necessarily unique to drug addicts or alcoholics or, people sure. in recovery.
We do seem to have a special niche for that, though, like a flair for it.
We have a special obsession with our own well-being.
Yes, true.
For good or bad.
Right. But we have an obsession with ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think anybody out there is okay.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, and there's some universal beauty to that, though, right? That of like, if I don't know, that we're all trying to have peace and ease. We all want safety, no matter who we voted for or what we believe in or what God or not God we pray to or don't pray to. We all really want that thing.
So I think, yes, everybody wants that for themselves. I don't think anybody wants that I don't think everybody wants that for everybody.
Agreed.
Unfortunately.
Because if your being okay is contingent upon getting what you think to be a limited amount of pie in
scarcity.
The world,
yeah. Scarcity. If you're coming from a scarcity mindset.
Zwingman talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
that's the thing is that like, I remember like my grandma, my dad's mom, she was the one that the idea of living an abundant life came from for me. That like that Jesus in her idiom and her world, was a source of abundance, and that there's plenty. There's so much. And I think in her, it was like love, you know.
Sure.
I mean, she was born in 1909. She was 29 years old when the stock market crashed.
Wow.
Right? She was 60 years old when Woodstock happened. She was 80 years old when Reagan got elected.
Wow. Yeah.
She homesteaded in Montana. She lived in Southern California. She'd seen a lot of stuff, and she had known actual scarcity.
Right. Oh, yeah.
In her memoir that she wrote, she talked about getting half an orange one year for Christmas.
Wow.
Right.
And probably being very stoked about that.
Yeah. And so like she knew what scarcity was. And she lived through the Great Depression. She was one of the people that like washed out her baggies still.
Yeah.
You know, to save them, to use them again, because that's what you did. You didn't throw anything away.
Yeah.
So I knew that she knew scarcity, right?
But she also preached abundance.
Yes.
How did that I'm very curious to know like how
she didn't really preach about anything.
Okay.
But I just remember some of the things that she read and stuff were along those lines. That like if you believe in Jesus Christ, then that is an abundant mindset, that there's plenty. And so that it's always kind of stuck with me. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to watch people that believe in Jesus Christ that are just sure that there isn't enough, that they're coming for it.
You mentioned Joel Osteen, and you know, that sort of prosperity gospel is really, really disgusting because it's so tethered to a capitalistic state. Right. And then you slap a belief system on top of that, then you're just worshiping the state. You're just worshiping what capitalism can give you. And that is a scarcity. I don't see that as from the gospel as I understand it. No. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, they're coming for your stuff, Joel. They're coming for your guns. They're coming for your money. They're coming for your jobs.
Yeah. There's plenty of all of that to go around.
Of all that. Lord knows there's plenty of guns.
There's plenty of guns. And I don't know about jobs, but at the same time, like the jobs.
You know, it's really funny. I saw a stat this week where Jeff Bezos could give every single one of his employees $105,000 cash, and he would have as much money as he did in March.
Holy shit.
But in the meantime,
he's profited off of this pandemic.
No, he hasn't just profited. He's like by hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But his workers work in horrible conditions. Shop local. And I as soon as this holiday Christmas season's buying is done, I'm going to shop local. So I'll just put my hypocrite hat on. But I mean, it's like a little awareness. Like seriously.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that guy could cut a check to wipe out everybody's student loans, and it wouldn't even affect him. It'd be like me going and buying a nice dinner.
But this is going to be fun. I bet if you sat down with Jeff Bezos and asked him what he really wants, it's peace and ease and safety. I guarantee you that money didn't buy it.
You think so?
I mean,
well, because he's I don't know. I've never had dinner with the guy, so I don't know what's going on in his head.
Well, that's the thing. Like if he were to be honest, I would put everything I own on that. That what he
What's
really
your
wants.
Point. Who cares?
My point is that we all want the same shit.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, And like, that's what we're all aiming for. And a lot of us get distracted. Now, that amount of money, I think, could buy you the opportunity and privilege to take a lot of time to find that peace and ease instead of worrying about
and to alleviate a shit ton of suffering
for others.
Right.
Which would feel probably pretty fucking good.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have that extra $400 billion. I mean,
yeah.
Seriously, what are you going to do with that extra $400 billion? You can't live off of just 300 billion.
No, if that 400 billion really, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's what I would peg it at.
Oh man, are you better? You feel better?
I do, actually. You know why? Because we've talked.
And I think that that's really important to remember that, like, I want to say this straight out the gate. If we ever have something planned and you need to pull the ripcord or I need to pull the ripcord, let's do it. Because the point is that I get excited about this because I get to talk to you, not because we're both experts at XYZ, right, or that we're like, great interviewers.
I'm really proud of myself that we made it through most of this. And I only mentioned Jerry Garcia once, I think.
That's a huge, maybe people could make a drinking game out of that.
Right.
That'd be fun. How many times?
Trying to be better bingo.
Yeah. Oh man. I feel like we're going to, how many times does Joel say Thich Nhat Hanh or Dharma or something? Right. How many times does Steve say Jerry Garcia or the Grateful Dead?
Right.
Well, I want you to know, as your friend, Steve, that you can pull the ripcord on anything we have planned. And
I feel like we're kind of co-producers of this deal.
For sure.
So today I exercised my executive privilege by saying, we're not going to do that. And you can do the same thing with me.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Because, we can, as I think it's apparent by now, we could do this ad nauseum.
Yeah, we really could.
Which is good. That's why I value your friendship.
Yeah, dude, I love you, man.
Love you too.
And at the end of the day, I this is one opportunity that we can show the world that two, like we said, nearing middle-aged white dudes can open up their hearts to each other, to the world, and to talk about whatever's going on. Because if you can't do it with the people that you love and care about, that you have put a lot of faith and trust into, then we really are isolated, and it all sucks.
That's the big thing, man, is that isolation piece. And I feel like we've hit about an hour, so I feel like we've kind of done it, but if I was like, this is that actual personal connection is so incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Like, we're both really lucky in that we both live with people that like us.
Oh yeah.
Most of the time.
Yep.
And that we like most of the time.
Well, speaking of my therapist again, I just think about that. Like, he was going down the list. Okay, tell me about your relationship with your dad, your mom, all this stuff.
Right.
And he's
on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah. Then he's like, about your wife. And it was like, oh, my shoulders dropped. I was like, man, I don't know what I do.
We somehow managed to marry some of the best women.
Agreed. Yeah. But going back to that first conversation though, I would have fucked that up without you.
Same. Yes. 100%.
Right.
Yep.
Like that.
Well, yeah. There's plenty of evidence that shows that that's the case.
That's for the paywall podcast. Yeah, you get all those stories.
Right. We ever put that Patreon up there?
Yeah.
We'll get into all that behind the paywall.
Yeah, man. Well, okay. I'm going to get on the treadmill. I'm going to sit in meditation. I'm going to watch some Star Wars cartoons.
Oh, so good.
And then,
Christ.
I'm going to move my body. I'm going to do the things. What are you going to do, buddy?
I'm going to go upstairs and say hi to my kids. We'll hang out for a little while, and I'm probably going to have a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah, you are.
But I won't be eating my feelings. I'll just be having a bowl of ice cream.
Good.
All right. Did we do it?
I think we did it, buddy. Everybody follow us out there.
Instagram. If you have comments, we still do the email thing. It's ttbbpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
So a couple of people have reached out, and thank you for that. We always appreciate ideas and, comments. So,
and now that you mentioned this, I put a thing out there in sort of leading up to what I thought was going to be the topic for today.
Oh, really? I didn't even see it.
So, man, I might switch that up, or you can just write something ridiculous in that, and I'll put another one up. But I love you, Steve.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
We didn't do that, which is amazing. That's why I love this deal.
Me too. All right, man.
All right.
Until next time.
See you around.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Bye.
Later.